All right, good morning, everybody. First session of the day. My name is Khuram Zaman, and today's session we're calling it Data Science for Good. And this is going to be a little bit of lecture and a little bit of workshop. So what I would suggest is that if you have a laptop and internet connection, you're going to follow along with this presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about how religious groups are using technology, sometimes for good things, sometimes for bad things. And our job is going to be to try to analyze, how these groups are using platforms like Twitter, and how you, as an individual interfaith leader, can also use these platforms. So, a little bit about the agenda is we'll talk about a little bit about myself, why data science for interfaith is kind of a weird mix. Not too many people talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about our learning approach and what we're trying to accomplish today. And then last but not least, we're going to get into Google Colabs, which I'll explain what that is. And we'll start doing some analysis of some tweets that I pulled last night. If you're not able to use your laptop right now, or if you don't have a laptop, it's totally cool. All of this stuff is available publicly. So the tweets are available publicly, and I'll put up this workbook after the two workshops today, and you can access it. And then you can also email me, and I'd be happy to kind of continue this conversation after this weekend. So about myself, my email is khuram@fifthtribe.com, and you can tweet me at Zaman Digital. So if for some reason you're not able to follow along and you want to catch up with me later, I also have business cards here. You can grab them. I'm the CEO of a company called Fifth Tribe. We're a software development firm based in Washington, D.C. I'm also an adjunct professor at Georgetown University, where I teach launching entrepreneurial ventures. I've got a few different certifications, and I've got a bunch of different awards related to hackathons and data-a-thons that I participated in. So 2014, I traveled to the Gulf region, and I won a hackathon. I was against ISIS. So it was really, they're trying to figure out how do we combat ISIS online. And so me and my friend, we went there, we ended up pitching, we thought we were gonna lose, we ended up getting first place. And that was really kind of an inspirational point for me. And so I started analyzing how does ISIS use Twitter online, and I won a prize with Kaggle. It's a data science platform that Google bought. And then I got another award a little bit later for how religious leaders are responding to ISIS online. And so my company does software development, but we do these things like hackathons, which is usually a day or two. We get donuts in the morning, pizza. It's pretty unhealthy. And we try to stretch ourselves a little bit. My background is I'm not a programmer. I did political science and philosophy. So I'm South Asian, so my parents gave me two choices, a doctor, lawyer. I ended up going to law school, and I graduated in 2008, which was an awesome time to graduate because there was a recession, so finding a job was really interesting. So I ended up working with my buddies from college who were all in tech, and so that's how I got pulled into tech. One of them was starting a company called Fifth Tribe, and I joined in, and we basically went from there. So I do not know by my background, my academic background is not in programming, it's not in software development, but I kind of picked up those skills primarily by watching YouTube videos and taking some classes here and there. And you can learn a lot by Googling things and looking up on Stack Overflow and on YouTube. So my goal here is to let you know that this might look really challenging, may be very difficult, what we're about to do, but the point is that it's okay. This is how everybody learns, and the best way to learn is by starting and doing it, okay? So as a hackathon, we did a bunch of different projects. Most of them are just kind of goofy ones. One time we built a dating app for people to help be a wingman for somebody, and sometimes we did some serious ones. And the two serious ones that we did was one called No Islamophobia, where in about a day or two we built a tracker for people that were tweeting anti-Muslim sentiment. And what's really interesting is we did this hackathon, I think 6 years ago, and it's just been running on autopilot. We now have 600,000 tweets. And we saw how it shifted from around the world, anti-Muslim tweets, where a lot of them were in the United States, then it went to Europe, now it's in the subcontinent, you see it in China. So it's kind of been a very interesting project that we did. And we noticed that a lot of extremist groups were using these kind of hashtags to foment anti-Muslim sentiment around the world. And we also looked at ISIS data sets, which I kind of talked about. And that one was where I just compiled these tweets and I put them on Twitter and or on Kaggle. And I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought something was reporting to the FBI or something. And I had a friend who worked at the FBI, and I was like, yeah, am I going to get arrested? He was like, no, it's cool. You guys are doing good stuff. So I got a little bit of thumbs up. And so Kaggle didn't respond for a couple of months. And so I thought, oh, man, they just didn't like my data set. And then all of a sudden, they approved it. And then it went viral, basically, within Kaggle, where it became one of the best performing data sets for the whole year. And they had hundreds of data scientists around the world came together, collaborated, and analyzed it. So I didn't know any of that stuff. I kind of learned it by watching them do it. So the conclusion I kind of came up with is that the bad guys are using technology and religion for nefarious purposes, right? So If you look at ISIS, they had like a bot, and they were like tweeting up to 200,000 times a day. They only had a couple of thousand followers, but it made it seem like there was this huge movement. And the same thing with some of these other groups is that they were using different kind of hacks to make them seem a lot bigger than they were. So my conclusion was that if these bad guys are using religion for bad purposes and technology for bad purposes, where are the good guys? The good guys need to step up their game. As interfaith leaders, you got to see what's happening outside our little communities and get out there and see how can you use these platforms to amplify your voice and your vision. And so that's kind of what this workshop is about, is that we want to have good digital strategy when we go online. And we want it to be data driven. And we want to see what's happening out there and adapt very quickly. And since there's so much data, there's so much social media out there, it's really hard to kind of sift through. And that's where data science can be very useful to breaking that information down. And the thing is, you don't need to have a large tech team or a budget. You can do very simple, cool things in a very short amount of time. And what we want to do here is that we want to maximize our impact as interfaith leaders and make it data-driven and good digital strategy. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try and get inspired. That's kind of like the main purpose of this, is that we're going to do a little bit of programming, but we're also going to mostly just try to get inspired. That's what happened with me on my journey. Was I just got inspired by, I went to like a lecture, and this guy did some stuff on Twitter, and I was like, that's really cool. And I just applied it to a totally different problem set. And and I kept building this skill set over time. And so that's what we really want to do today is get inspired, take a really kind of hard, complex topic for people that aren't, maybe like computer science majors, and make it accessible to everybody. And we're going to look at Twitter as a potential interfaith outreach channel. And what we're going to try to do is, instead of just spraying and praying, like we're just going to throw out content on the internet and hope somebody like interacts with it, we're going to try to observe what's happening. Like, who are the success stories on Twitter, and what can we learn from them? So our process is we're going to code a little bit, we're going to run a little bit of a program, and we're going to get some data back. We're going to try to understand what does that mean, and then we're going to write down our conclusions. Like, what did we learn from this? And then at the end of it, we're going to try and come up with a list of recommendations for a digital strategy. And we're going to be learning by doing. So you're going to need a laptop, an internet, a Gmail account, and your thinking caps. Okay? So if you have a laptop and you have a Gmail account, I would suggest you open those up right now, because we're going to dive right in. Our hackathon principles are: we're here to learn. Okay? We're not here to like just analyze millions of tweets and like walk out. And if we fail, we're going to feel bad. It's okay. We're not going to get that far, and that's totally cool. We want to get from 0 to 1. A lot of the times when it comes to programming, it's like really intimidating, and so just getting that first step done is really, it builds up confidence to go further. And again, like if we fail, it's totally cool. What we want to do is we want to iterate. So maybe the first time we fail, it's going to, we take a break, go for a walk, get some coffee, come back and try it again, and you'll see that you'll iterate and iterate and iterate. And learning how to learn is the most important skill that we want to get out of this today. So let's get started. Our project overview today is you've been hired by Interfaith Inc. I couldn't come up with a better name. And you're going to help them come up with a digital strategy for Twitter. And they don't know where to start, so they want you to start with that. And we're going to analyze 100 tweets that use the hashtag Interfaith. These are pulled last night. And we're going to see who's talking, where are they from, what are some things that we can observe from them. So we're going to look at the data set, and we're going to identify opportunities, and we're going to list recommendations at the end of what we think would be a good digital strategy for Interfaith Inc. to interact with. And this is what we're going to do today. Number one is we're going to get started with this platform called Google Colab. It makes data science so much easier. Back in my day, I had to install the software on my computer, and I had to figure all this stuff out. Google makes it super easy. You just need a Gmail account to get started. Two is we're going to install some libraries. There's Pandas, Matplotlib. We're going to skip Seaborn for today. If we have time, we'll do another few libraries, but I don't think we'll get that far. Three is we're going to connect our Google Colab to a Google Sheet, a CSV with those 100 tweets. And then we're going to open up that CSV, and we're going to start analyzing all the tweets inside of them. And I'm going to ask you all questions as we're going through it. What do you observe? And what are your recommendations at the end? Cool? And this whole presentation, like I said, all of this stuff will be available online afterwards if anybody wants to take a look. So step one, I said if you have a laptop, you guys, if you can get it out and open it up, we're going to start with Google Colab. So this is what Google Colab looks like. You can just Google Colab. You'll get the first link. You can click on it. It's a browser-based tool that allows you to run a programming language called Python. And if you're trying to get into programming, I always recommend Python. It's one of the easier languages to pick up. It's much more like natural. It's a little bit more concise, and so you can learn it faster. A lot of data science stuff is done in Python for that reason. And so you can get pretty far pretty fast with Python. So what it does is it allows you to run everything online. You don't have to install any software on your computer to do that. And it has a bunch of libraries for machine learning that are built in that you'll see how easy and fast it is to kind of get started. And it's an alternative to something called Jupyter Notebook. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's one of the kind of the premier desktop applications to do data science. And it requires a lot of installation. You got to have Python. You got to install Python on your computer. It's got to be the right version of Python. You got to have something called Anaconda. You got to have all these libraries. So when I first started doing this, it was like I had the latest version of Python. I was a version behind. I forgot, and it wasn't working. And I spent like a whole week just trying to install stuff, and it was really frustrating. And then I ended up figuring it out. So this is really nice that you get to skip all this pain. You know, it's like when your parents tell you, like, when I was your age, I had to walk to school. It's like this is the version of that. It's like you youngsters, you just get to go on Google Colab and start programming. So no software installation is necessary. They have free computing resources up to a limit, and I think it's like I want to say 20 gigabytes or something. And they have GPUs, which you need for data science stuff, as opposed to CPUs. It integrates with Google Drive. What does that all mean? It's going to save you time, and it saves you money. You don't have to spend anything. You can just start really quickly. So if you're going to follow along with this, you're going to go to colab.research.google.com, and then you're going to log into it via your Gmail account, and you're going to create a new notebook and just give it a file name. So I gave mine, I think, like Interfaith America, tweet, hashtag analysis, something like that, long to do that. So if you're following along, you can go ahead and do that. And then you're going to see once you're in there, this is kind of what it looks like, is that you have the file button, you got to edit, you got view, insert, runtime tools, and help. File is where you can rename the file, you can download your whole notebook. And then you'll see is that once you've added it, there's a plus sign that says plus code and plus text. And what you do there is you just add a code cell and you add a text cell. So what is a code cell? Is that it's actually just programming language, Python, and it's going to run it and execute it. There's a little play button that appears. And then the text button is just if you want to describe and add markup text, you can just kind of do that. Cool? The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to install some libraries. And the two libraries we're going to install, the most important one for now is going to be Pandas, which is basically a library for numerical analysis and categorical analysis. And I'll explain what that means in just a second. When you add in that code, it just says import pandas as PD, and then you press the play button. What will happen is next to it, there's a little green checkbox that appears. That means your code ran successfully. If it didn't run successfully, it's going to give you like a red mark, and you're going to get an error. And the error will tell you what line the mistake is in, okay? And so that's what the installation of libraries do when you're running your code. Cool? The third thing that we're going to do is we're going to connect to Google Drive. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use this snippet of code. And what it does is it's connecting your notebook to whatever is in your Google Drive. So it's from google.colab import drive, and then drive.mount, and it's going to be your Gmail, your Google Drive account. All right? And then again, you're going to hit play. When you hit play, you're going to get a pop-up now, and Google's going to confirm that you're not being hacked. And they're going to say, do you give permission to Google to access this drive? And then you're going to select which Gmail account. I have multiple Gmail accounts, so you're going to pick your Gmail account. You're going to click allow. And then basically what's going to happen is you're going to get a green checkbox, and it's going to connect. Yeah, go ahead, Shark. Yep, no problem, right here. Yeah.
How do I enter /content/ I don't have to find the link for my specific.
Yeah, that's exactly that. If you're logged into your Gmail, that's the exact link that you'll use.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. The internet? I don't know actually.
Password? IFIL 2022. Is there a way to pull up your business station to make it bigger? Like on our own computers, like right now? I can't really.
Yeah, sure. What I'll do is I have a public Google folder, and I'll share the link out with that. Let me get through like a little bit to the setup part, and then we'll do that. Great feedback. Shark, how's everybody doing? You like the laptop table, so I'm gonna look at you when things are good, okay? All right. All right, so once you've connected your Google Drive, so go ahead and walk through that process. We're going to do this process of reading a CSV. And I think it would be great if we could write that down on the board. Let me see if I can do that. Can somebody just grab a marker and I'll tell them to write something on that board? All right, go ahead, ready? So this is the link to the CSV. It's HTTPS colon double backslash, yep, bit.ly, yep. Oh, you got it. All right, great. Awesome. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to that URL. You're going to see a CSV of about 100 tweets. And then you're going to download it to your computer, and then you're going to upload it to your Google Drive folder. Ideally, just keep it in like your main folder. It'll be a lot easier. You can also put it in like a separate folder in the future if you like to. Sharik is my teacher's assistant for today. Yeah, I know. I met him like 5 minutes before this started. Yeah, you store it in your Google Drive. It has to be the same Google Drive that your Google Colab account is in, so it'll find the directory. Go back 2 slides. So this is the first one. So the first thing we do is we import our libraries. And for today, it'll just be import pandas as PD. And then we connect to the Google Drive account. Yeah, I did.
How was that process?
Terrible, actually. Yeah, learning tech is like, think of it like a tree. It has all these like gnarly roots. And essentially, I think the way that we think of learning programming is like you learn one thing, and then it's very sequential, and you go up a step, and then you learn something else. And that's not really how it is. Like you'll try to do something, and everything online, it's always a little bit out of date, and everybody does things very differently. And so if you use Stack Overflow, a solution that works for somebody else might not work for you, but you get in the habit of like learning. You'll start noticing certain things as you start searching. So for example, Twitter updated their API just I think like last year, and so they have a much more rigorous program, and so it's called Twitter API version 2. So all these other libraries that you're using, they're deprecated. They don't really work that well, and all the other Twitter scrapers are basically gone. There's only like really Tweeby left. And Tweeby is not 100% integrated with that. So when you're searching Stack Overflow, you'll be like, oh, anything that's before 2022, I'm just going to ignore it because it's out of date. that's the kind of stuff that happens. Like you look up stuff, it goes back to like 2014, and so you'll see stuff that's there, and it's like totally not relevant anymore. So learning that it's challenging. And what I think learning as a community and finding friends, kind of how like these folks are doing, they're sitting around a laptop. It didn't work for me. Building a community of hackers is like really helpful. I think hacking is the best way to do it. Like find a personal project you're passionate about and try to accomplish something with it, and then you'll learn it. So I did like a stock scraper where I got really interested in scraping stocks before the pandemic started. And so I was like running all this analysis in spreadsheets, and I was like, man, this is terrible. And I was like, let me just write a scraper that does this. And so I figured out how to do that. And so it just makes it a lot easier for me to analyze stocks. Yep, go ahead.
Can I ask maybe a stupid question?
No, there's no stupid questions here. Go ahead.
What do you mean by hacking?
Hacking is, when we think of hacking, there's like a cybersecurity term for hacking, and there's hacking as like a tech community. When you're talking about hacking and cybersecurity, you're talking about like going into like a government website and stealing like, drinking some Red Bull or whatever, and like you're going past their firewall, stealing some secret documents or whatever. And so that's like one version of what hacking means. In the tech community, what I mean by hacking is like usually in a very short period of time, we try to build something that we've never like really built before, or it's really ambitious, and it's a stretch goal. It's like, sometimes you go to the gym and like you kind of you get stuck in a rhythm, and then sometimes you try to go and like, oh, let me beat my last record, and that's what you're trying to do here. So what I found with hackathons is like, when I did my first hackathon as a company, I was like, I don't know Python, I'm gonna spend the 8 hours in the hackathon just trying to get like a simple project running, and I actually got really far, a lot farther than I had expected. And so if you go on YouTube, you'll see all sorts of videos that explain things. So pick a personal project that you're trying to start with, and then you can go ahead and use that as an example to learn more. All right? I'm going to continue, and then what we'll do is, again, like the whole workbook, everything will be available, and I'll be available all day after this workshop. I have another workshop after this, and then I'll be available afterwards if people want to sit down and we can eat some food and chat. So now that you've connected your Google Colab to your Google Drive, and you've uploaded that CSV, we're going to start doing some analysis. And I'm going to talk about it just by opening up the workbook, but there's lots of different things that we're going to do as we're kind of going through the workshop. All right? So I'm going to open up my workbook right here. And so in the beginning, what we'll notice is a few different things. It's not connected, so I'm going to hit connect over here. Now Google is going to just like run up the notebook, and it's going to give you your RAM and your disk. So it's technically free up until a certain point, and if you hover over it, it'll tell you how much you have. So it's 107 gigabytes. I misspoke. I thought it was 20 gigabytes. It's actually 107 gigabytes. And I've used about 12 gigabytes of disk space. Normally, when you do a notebook, you want to start with something called context. So if somebody has never seen your data, they wanted to understand what it's about. You usually kind of give a little bit of background about what that data set is about. So here I says that Twitter is basically the world's de facto public town square. Many groups are using it to connect and organize communities, interfaith communities included. And what we're doing with this data set is we're going to look at users and organizations that use the hashtag interfaith. Our objective is what I usually add is like, what are we trying to accomplish with this data set, which is different from the context. The objective is to look at potential opportunities and recommendations to help an interfaith organization develop its own Twitter strategy. And then we have something called the data dictionary. And what a data dictionary is that I know the answer to what is in the data, but not everybody else does. And so what happens over here is you explain what's in the data. What are all the different fields that are in a database? And the reason why is not everybody knows everything. So for example, what we have over here is tweet ID, which is usually it's a number, and it's a specific set of numbers to describe a tweet. If you wanted to look it up on Twitter, you would use that to do that. Now it's a little bit tricky. It's not a URL, so you have to figure out a way to create a URL for Twitter and then add in the tweet ID to go to that URL. It's a little bit complicated. Created is when the tweet was created. User is the person that tweeted it, but that's a little bit tricky because it's not just the person that tweeted it. It could be the person that retweeted it. It could be the person that favorited it. And so sometimes you look at, when I first did this, I had 100 tweets, and only 8 of them were unique. That means that the vast majority of the tweets in the data set were just people retweeting stuff. And so it wasn't really interesting, so we wanted to kind of clean it up a little bit. Source is interesting because it's the application they used for the tweet. And this is why it's interesting, is that you normally use an app like Twitter for Android or Twitter for iPhone, but here you'll see people are using bots. And that's where you're like, oh, this really, really active Twitter account, they have a bot, and they have a name for the bot, and you'll see where it kind of came from. Favorite count is how many times the tweet was favorited. Retweet is how many times it was retweeted. Geo and coordinates, geo tells you what country it's from, and the coordinates are the longitude and latitude of the tweet. And usually these are totally empty. Languages are what language it's in. Twitter is okay at classifying the languages sometimes. It's not, sometimes the tweets have English and another language. So it's a little bit hard to kind of break it down. And then entities is basically this catch-all. It's got lots and lots of data inside of it. And it could be other hashtags that were used. It could be other people, other mentions. And there's this concept of what we call like nesting, where it's like a tweet. Somebody could tweet something, and then somebody could retweet it or quote tweet it, and then somebody could like or somebody could favorite or retweet the quote tweet. So it's got these layers in there, and so what Twitter does is it just like stuffs everything kind of in there. And so if you're trying to analyze a tweet, it's like it gets kind of tricky. Yep.
So is this like public information? Like you can
Yeah, this is what I pulled last night from Twitter. All right.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy though. The coordinates.
Yeah, the coordinates aren't really, they're not really there. So this is the code that I had last night, and the stuff that's in red, this is called a comment. And what that means is that I've taken that part of the code and I basically told the program not to run it. And this is more for more like advanced visualization stuff. And it's all there, so if you want to take a look at it and see how I'm using it, you could just uncomment it and run it, but we won't have time today to kind of talk about it. So the 2 lines of code that we're running to install the libraries, it's import pandas as PD. And what you're doing it as, you're just giving it like a nickname. And pandas is that it's a library to use data frames. And we're going to open up this CSV. We're going to put it into basically like a table. And then we're going to do stuff with it. We can add columns. We can remove columns. We can change the data. And we're giving it a nickname PD, so it's easier to type because we're lazy. We don't want to type in pandas. We just want to type PD. And then we're going to also import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT. Probably won't have enough time to do that. But I hit play, and I got a little green check mark. That means it's imported. And now I'm going to do what I did before, which was I'm going to connect to my Google Drive. And you'll see it's connecting over here. And it's asking me which Google account. And I'm going to just connect it to my Gmail account and click Allow. And it's going to take a second. Hopefully it connects. Otherwise, it'll be a short presentation. There we go. All right, connected. And I'm going to open up the data set. And there's a link in the Google Notebook as well to that data set. And what I'm doing now is I'm creating a data frame. Remember I said I'm going to call it DF, data frame for short, equals pd.read_CSV. And what that's telling me is I'm going to take the CSV, I'm going to open it, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to put it into a data frame. And what you have to do here is use the directory path. This is where it gets a bit tricky. But mine is content/ddrive/my drive, and then I have a folder called Interfaith America, and then I have the name of the file. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to go back to your Google, wherever you put your CSV, just write down all the folders you have, put a slash in between them, and then you get the file name, you can copy paste it and put it in here. And then we're going to hit print df. All right, so print is telling you to basically show me the contents of that data frame you just created. So what does everybody see here? What's in this data set? Who wants to tell me what they see? There's no right or wrong answer here. Yeah, so there's different columns, right? So we see 0, it's got a bunch of numbers in it. 0, which has some more numbers in it. 1, which it looks like it's a date time. 2, it's you'll see something called user. So you notice that the first row under it, yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah, sure. Let me figure out. Is that better? Great, okay, sorry. Yeah, so you can see over here, you're starting to see that the first row, it's got some of those fields that I was mentioning. So tweet ID, created user, the tweet itself, the source, favorite count. You'll see geo and coordinate says nan. It's not non, it's nan, and it's not a number, basically. And then it has a language here. So it says EN, and there's QME. What does QME mean? Anybody know what QME is? Can somebody just Google that? Let us know. I actually don't know what QME stands for. And then we have this column which has all the other stuff we mentioned. What we're going to do now is, as a kind of a practice, we do something called print the shape. What do you think is in the shape of a data frame? It's telling me it's got 100 of one thing and 12 of another. Any thoughts on what that is? Very good. What's your name? Lucky? Good answer. Great answer. Perfect. So df.shape, it's telling me that it's got 100 rows of data and it's got 12 columns. The next thing that we typically do, this is called exploratory data analysis. We're just trying to open the door, look around, window shop a little bit, and see what's there. And so we're going to hit df.info. And again, it's very short lines of code, which is why I thought this would be kind of a cool workshop. It's like one line, it's a few different characters, and you can get lots of information. So here we see that it's like summarizing what's in the data. And so we have all these columns. And what it did was there's data sets messed up. Okay, so when it scraped the tweets, it's treating the row headings as data and not as a column heading. The column headings it's treating it as like a row, it's not reading it as a column. And then you see over here where it says non-null count. Again, this is like very technical. What it means is like how much of these are empty versus how much of them have data. And then it's telling you the data type. So int64 means it's an integer, and object means it's basically a bunch of letters and potentially numbers. So this is a little bit problematic because like your tweet ID should not be, it shouldn't be treated alphabetically. Your favorite count shouldn't be treated alphabetically because you want to be able to count it. If I want to count how many tweets are favorited, and sort it, I can't do that right now. So let's take a look at the columns, and what we're going to do is you're going to see that this is how it's treating the column names. And the first thing that we'll do after that is we're going to create our own column names. And so I created what's called a list. And inside of that list, I put a bunch of different column names like tweet ID, created user, tweet source, favorite count, retweeted, geocoordinates. The number of values in a list has to match what's in the spreadsheet. If you don't match it exactly, it's going to give you an error, okay? And so what I have here is I have a space in the front because for some reason the CSV has an extra space. And so we could drop the column, but we'll keep it simple for today. So I'm going to run that code. And what I'm doing here now is I'm just cleaning it up a little bit. I'm going to convert those strings. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it possible for you to just have a link for this notebook where everyone can just...
Yeah. Let me do this really quickly. I'll just go to bit.ly and make a link to it. I have to make this public, so let me figure out.
Everyone has that directory set up, all we just need those.
Yeah, I should have done this before the presentation. Let me do it after the presentation, if that's okay. And I'll do this workshop again, so we'll have it recorded, all right? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to kind of skip this stuff. It's a little boring, but I'm just turning it into a number over here. And so now what you'll see here is that my tweet ID is a number, my favorite and retweet count is also a number, and I can start looking at it. So now that the data's cleaned up a little bit, see how easy that was? I didn't have to go into Excel and open it up and then like select an entire column and then convert it, go to format, and change it from a string to a number. I could very easily just, in 1 or 2 lines of code, just clean up the entire thing. So now I'm going to see this thing here where it says print the head. And what head does is it just prints the first 5 rows of the data set. So now we'll start seeing some information in here. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what exactly we're looking at. So at the end of the cell on the right side, you'll see this little magic button, and it's your best friend. So you click on the magic button. I don't even know if it's called a magic button. I just call it the magic button. But now I can click on it, and what it's done is it's made it into a table, so now I can read some of the tweets. So who can tell me what they're seeing in some of these tweets? How's that? One more? Okay. Yeah. So here's the tweet ID you can see here. It's got that, and it's added a bunch of zeros. So if you actually try to copy paste that, it wouldn't work. It adds like 6 or 9 zeros for some reason, so you'd have to, again, clean it up a little bit to get the actual tweet ID. So what time was this tweet made? The first one. Sorry, who said today? Yeah, you're right. It was done a little bit after midnight, because that's when I was running the script. So it was at 12:46 a.m. apparently. I think my laptop's on Eastern Standard Time, so this might have been a little bit earlier. And what's the name of the user who sent this tweet? Dean Hedges, great. And what's this tweet about?
Fellowship deadline.
Great. So this is interesting here. So he says, Abrahamic houses, not sure what that's about, but it says we're extending our deadline to apply to the 2022 to 2023 DC Fellowship to August 22nd. Those of you that, I don't know what this fellowship is about. It might be interesting. This might be an opportunity now for your organization to say, hey, our members might be interested in applying for this fellowship. And where did he tweet it from? He tweeted it from Android. This is the creepy part. And how many people favorited or retweeted his tweet? Sad face, right? So he's trying to get people to sign up for his fellowship. Nobody favored it. Nobody retweeted it. So maybe your job as an interfaith activist is just to give him some love, right? Just favorite his tweet, retweet it for him. So you've amplified that voice and helped build an alliance with this guy, Dean Hedges. Check out his Twitter handle first, make sure he's legit. And then you can kind of see these other hashtags a little bit. He did it in English. And then he's mentioned other users, and you can see the user ID, and you can kind of get a little bit more into that, okay? Great. And then you see that Abrahamic Houses was another tweet. And so you see that Dean Hedges retweeted Abrahamic Houses. They did a little bit better. They got 2 favorites and 1 retweet. So that 1 retweet is who? Is Dean Hedges. Exactly, right. So Abrahamic Houses, I don't know if anybody here is from there, but maybe we can all follow them on Twitter and give them some love, right? And there's something else that you see here, and this is just the first 5 tweets, is that today is International Youth Day, and so they talk about interfaith initiatives in the UK. And so again, I didn't know it was International Youth Day, and I had no idea it was related to interfaith. And so that's another opportunity that maybe next year as a content strategy, your organization can say, hey, on International Youth Day, we're going to put out a bunch of tweets. And then you go into this next tweet, which says, all cats are Muslim, Gawker says so, it's true, Islam, I don't know what that's about, but it's the internet. There's gonna be something about cats somewhere, right? So that's the kind of stuff that you're gonna see, is like you're just looking at the first few tweets, and you found a potential person that can retweet your content. You have a potential organization that you might wanna follow. They have a fellowship you might wanna sign up for. So we already found kind of a few sort of potential opportunities here. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna run the tail. And unlike the head, which looks at the first 5 tweets, the tail looks at the last 5 tweets. And there's some tweets about here about, it seems like Buddhism, Islam, and something about Lajna Tour Canada. And so what I'm going to do is let's open this up in the table view and see if we can read these tweets. And it says, join the Ahmadiyya Muslim Women's Association Toronto chapter at their annual Interfaith Symposium. So this is another event that's happening. That's an interfaith event, and that could be a potential avenue for you to go ahead and attend it as well, all right? And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at, out of all these tweets, how many are unique. And so out of the 100 or so tweets, 82 of them are unique. So the first tweet that we saw was actually a retweet. And so most of the data in here is not retweets, it's original unique tweets. And then what you can do here, if you wanna look at them, you can drop the tweets that are unique, that are duplicates, and so you'll get your 83 tweets or so. And now what we'll do is look at the tweets here that have the highest count of retweets. And so this one says, somebody, it looks like, it's like a retweet of a person. MT Shah Maqsood is delighted to attend Berlin's Interfaith Festival, organized by Faith in Tunes on August 28th. So again, another potential event that you could find out. If you're from Germany, you happen to be in town, you want to go to that event, you could do that, right? And here is a participants wanted. I'm working on an interfaith intercultural couples project and looking for couples to talk to. So again, you're seeing some more and more kind of interesting opportunities. So that did a little bit better. I got 16 retweets. And you can kind of go there and see what was mentioned in those tweets. So these are all the tweets. It's a little bit larger. We can kind of go through them and start seeing things here. And then you can look at the tweets with the most favorites. And so you notice the difference between retweets and favorites is that the most retweets was 18, and the most favorited was about 13, right? And there's a person, Brandon, talking about speaking about interfaith. And here there's a tweet from somebody, Michal Latif, who's actually a friend of mine, talking about seeing history from Shia perspective. So there's interfaith and there's intrafaith, and so this tweet is about people within the Muslim community doing intrafaith with other people. All right, and then I'm gonna kind of go through this a little bit quickly. This is another library called Advert Tools, and what it does is it allows us to sort of analyze the hashtags in a bit more detail and then do like keyword analysis. So I'm gonna skip the code part and just kind of show you what the analysis is over here. So when we extract from the hashtags, from all the tweets, we get a whole bunch of them. And it's like hard to kind of really see what the main ones are. And what we can do is we can pull them out, look at the frequency, and then we could start visualizing the data, right? And so this is where matplotlib comes in. Let's make that bigger. So what matplotlib is telling you is like, it's telling you like, this is a bar chart, this is a pie chart, and you could start analyzing your data and drawing some conclusions. So one thing that I noticed when I was looking at interfaith tweets, I was looking at I'm doing a project in India looking at sort of this hashtag love jihad, which is, it's like a concept where it's a conspiracy theory in India where some people are saying like, oh, Muslims are secretly converting Hindu women through marriage and stuff. And so what I noticed was I was analyzing some fact-checking organizations in India, as well as the organizations that are spreading this conspiracy theory. And one thing I noticed off the bat was that the fact-checking organization did not use hashtags at all. Whereas the people that were spreading the conspiracy theory, they used like 4 or 5 hashtags per tweet. So you can analyze how many hashtags they use in a tweet. One recommendation I would give to that organization that's a fact checker is like, you guys need to use more hashtags, not just one hashtag, but up to 3 or 4 hashtags. And the reason why is when you use a hashtag, it appears in other people's feeds, depending on their interests, and so it's more likely to get more people to see it. So looking at hashtag analysis here is that you'll see like there's interfaith, there's Islam, blessing, grateful, gratitude, love, intrafaith, amore, art code, and a bunch of other ones that you can kind of get a sense of. You see International Youth Day. So again, as you're putting a content strategy together, you'll say this is an event that's happening that we want to plug into as well as other things, right? And then what we can do is we can look at the top mentions here. So the top account was Lodge Nator Canada, then Twig Swindon, then Voice of Salam, and so on and so forth. And then what we could start doing is we could start breaking down all of the tweets. So we looked at the hashtags, we looked at the mentions, and now we're going to look at just the text itself. And we can clean it up a little bit and basically start visualizing that by cutting on the words. And so you'll see that it's interfaith, Muslim, it says great. That could be grateful, it could be gratitude. What it's done is it's looked at the stem word and it's cut everything else off. And the reason it's a lot of stuff about Islam, I think, is that one, there was like, it's a religious holiday, Ashura, and so a lot of the tweets were related, like tagging a little bit onto that event. So a lot of stuff was around that, tied to that. Cool. And then here is what's called the top organizations. So which organizations were mentioned the most? So the Ahmadiyya Muslim Women's Association, Islam Sikh, Swin Interfaith Roundhouse, Twig Swindon. So it's just like telling you like which organizations were in there. And then last but not least, they have something called the top people mentioned. So it mentioned Muharram as a person. So this is not accurate. Muharram is a month in the Islamic calendar. And so I don't know why I did that, but you see like Shirley Murphy. No idea who Shirley Murphy is, but I mentioned Mahatma Gandhi. It seems like there's some other potential interfaith leaders as well. So you'd want to dive in a little bit and take a look at that. The last thing we'll look at is we'll look at sources. And so we always want to kind of see, this is where I find the most interesting stuff, is if you look at all the tweets, we can see and visualize what type of apps people are using. Yeah, go ahead.
So all this information is in the CSV, right?
No, the CSV is just, if you go to Google Drive, yeah, so all the data is coming from there, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All the data is coming from there.
Yeah. It's a spreadsheet. So if you look at the CSV, let's just pull up my Google Drive. So we're getting all of this analysis just by looking at this, right? And so we're basically saving ourselves a lot of time from doing that. So here's what it looks like when you visualize the sources. So what are some of the sources everybody sees here? Where are most people tweeting from? Yeah, make it bigger. Yeah. All right, so number 1 is this Twitter web app. Number 2 is Twitter for Android, Twitter for iPhone, Twitter for iPad. That's normal, right? We would expect that. Then we see Hootsuite. Does anybody know what Hootsuite is? Who knows what Hootsuite is? I think somebody should. Yep, go ahead.
Kind of like you can schedule tweets and put tweets and stuff.
Exactly. It's a scheduling software so you can schedule your tweets out. Then we have Buffer, which is very similar. It schedules tweets. Then we have Social Pilot. Then we have something called Mindfulness Meditation Retweeter. What's that about, right? So somebody built a bot. And what that bot does is every time you mention meditation, it automatically retweets it, right? So that's the kind of stuff that you start seeing here. Then you see Instagram is in there. You see IFTTT, which means if this, then that. It's a tool that allows you that if something happens, you do something else. And so that's probably being used to retweet, that if a hashtag mentions something, it's going to retweet it. This is source, which means that our data is a little dirty because it's got the column heading in the data set. That's not good. We should clean that up. There's something called the Agora Pulse app, Agora Pulse. Then you have Sprout Social, Deliver, and then you have something called Spiritual Journey. And I looked up Spiritual Journey. I thought it was like a mobile app. There isn't an app called that, so it's probably a Twitter app or Twitter bot. And so that's the kind of stuff that you're seeing here is that that's an opportunity for your organization to say, hey, maybe what we need to do is we can amplify all these interfaith voices and build our own little bot. And what you can do with the Twitter API is that's exactly what you can do. You can make a little bot and says, if this hashtag is mentioned or this person's mentioned, automatically retweet it, all right? This is the core of what Elon Musk's lawsuit with Twitter is about, by the way. It's about how much of Twitter is bots versus real people. And so you'll see a little bit here in the interfaith community, it's not as bad. If you go to things like Bitcoin, it's like there's so many bots that are like retweeting things. It's like, it's crazy. So this is an opportunity potentially for that. So let's wrap this up a little bit. I know this was a lot. And again, the purpose wasn't like everybody gets from 0 to 100 in 60 minutes. The goal was to kind of see, hey, I can set up a Google account. I can go to Google Colab, create a notebook. I can go into my Google Drive and upload a spreadsheet. I can connect the Google spreadsheet. All this stuff I talked about, there's all these YouTube videos that talk about it. And if you shoot me an email, I have them pretty much all saved somewhere. I'll create like a cheat sheet for everybody here, and they can try to follow along if they want. So the goal here is just to kind of dip our toes into this.
Did you show us how to actually get the data set in the first place?
Yeah, so that's actually the first item over here. It's basically once your spreadsheet is connected, what you do is you read it over here. So it's reading the CSV and use the directory and the file name.
How do you get the actual file first?
Oh, it's yeah.
How do you get the 100 tweets?
So it's right there in that bit.ly link. You click on it, you download it, and then you put it in your personal Google Drive. And then you just need to tell Google Colab where in your Google Drive is. So I put mine in a folder, but you don't have to.
But is this one sheet, or can I like tomorrow analyze more tweets with this?
This is only going to be the 100 tweets.
Right, so how do I do my...
How do you get so if you wanted to go into Twitter and look at all the tweets, so that's a really great question. So what you need to do is you need to get a Twitter API developer account, and you have to apply for it. In the old days, you just set it up. It was like pretty easy. When I did my ISIS data set, I got it, they flagged it, because they're like, why are you downloading all these ISIS tweets? And I was like, I'm trying to do this thing. And they explained it, and they approved it. It was really simple. Now you have to explain how you're going to use it. Like, who are you? What's this app for? You're not going to give it to any foreign governments, right? And so it's a little bit more rigorous than it was a few years ago. But, they approve it pretty fast. Within 24 hours, you'll get approved.
So where do we do that?
You go to Google, you just Google Twitter developer account. And then you're going to apply. Once you get your account approved, you're going to get your own unique set of what's called tokens. So they have what's called like a secret token. They have a public token. I didn't share that part because that, I can add that to the presentation. Basically, how to do this. And then for that, what you do is you install a library called Tweepy. Like I said, there used to be a lot of Twitter scrapers, but Twitter basically shut them all down. The only real one that they work with now is Tweepy. And once you get Tweepy there, you're going to use your credentials for your developer account. You're going to log into Tweepy, and then you can start analyzing your tweets there. And if you look at the documentation, it explains like kind of how to do it. And I'd be happy to talk further about like how do you get a scraper built up. So the one thing is that I do all my scraping locally. But eventually, what you'd want to do, if you want to do what we did with like no Islamophobia, you'd have to set up a server and a database and then let that run on autopilot here. But I only look at small snippets of data when I'm doing it. Great question. Any other questions? All right, y'all are data scientists. High five. All right, cool. Thank you. Have a great day.